morning sun filtered through the tall windows of Classroom 3B at Riverside Elementary School. It was one of those ordinary Mondays where everything felt predictable and safe. 23 third graders sat at their desks, some still yawning from the weekend, others chattering about cartoons they'd watched or games they'd played. Mrs. Patterson stood at the front of the class, her reading glasses perched on her nose as she organized papers on her desk. She'd been teaching for 15 years and she loved this age group. 8- and 9-year-olds still had that wonderful curiosity about the world, that eagerness to learn and share. "All right, everyone, settle down, please," she said with a warm smile. The chatter gradually died down to whispers, then to silence. "I have something exciting to share with you today." The word exciting had every child sitting up straighter. Mrs. Patterson walked to the whiteboard and wrote in large letters. "My family tree, we're starting a new project," she announced, turning back to face the class. "Over the next 2 weeks, you're going to create your very own family tree and present it to the class." Immediately, hands shot up. Questions flew from every direction. Can we use markers or crayons? Do we have to include our annoying little brother? What if we have a really big family? Mrs. Patterson laughed, holding up her hands. "One at a time, one at a time. Yes, you can use whatever art supplies you want. Yes, you should include all your siblings, even the annoying ones. And yes, if you have a big family, that's wonderful. Just do your best to include as many people as you can." She walked between the desks, handing out sheets of paper with blank tree outlines printed on them. "These are just to help you get started. You can draw your own tree, make a poster, or even build a model if you're feeling creative. The important thing is that you tell us about the people in your family. Who they are, what they do, maybe a fun story about them." The excitement in the room was almost electric. Kids were already turning to their neighbors, talking rapidly about grandparents who told funny jokes, aunts who baked the best cookies, cousins who played soccer. "My grandpa was in the army," one boy announced proudly. "My mom has 5 sisters," another child added. "I have 7 cousins on my dad's side." Mrs. Patterson smiled at the enthusiasm. This was exactly why she loved this project. It helped children understand their roots, appreciate their families, and practice their presentation skills all at once. But in the back row, by the window, one small girl sat perfectly still. Her name was Lily, and while everyone around her buzzed with excitement, she stared down at the blank paper on her desk. Her hands rested flat on either side of it, not reaching for the pencil in her desk, not moving at all. Lily was a quiet child. Not shy exactly, but reserved. She did her work, turned in her assignments on time, and never caused any trouble. In a class of 23 energetic third graders, it was easy for a quiet child to fade into the background. And that's exactly what Lily had done for most of the year. She listened as the boy next to her talked about his dad's car repair shop. Behind her, 2 girls were discussing whether to put their pets on their family trees. All around her there was laughter and planning and joy. Lily looked down at her blank paper again. The empty branches seemed to stare back at her accusingly. Mrs. Patterson was making her way around the classroom now, stopping at each desk to answer questions and offer encouragement. She complimented one child's idea to interview her grandmother. She suggested another student might want to include old family photographs. Slowly, inevitably, she reached the back row. "How's it going back here?" Mrs. Patterson asked cheerfully, looking at the desk beside Lily's first. The boy there had already started sketching a tree trunk and was drawing stick figures with labels like Dad and Mom and Baby Brother. "Great, Mrs. Patterson. I'm going to make my dad really tall because he's like 6 feet. Wonderful creativity," Mrs. Patterson encouraged. Then she moved one desk over. She looked down at Lily's paper. It was still completely blank. Not even a line drawn. "Lily, do you need some help getting started?" Mrs. Patterson's voice was kind, but Lily felt her stomach tighten anyway. "I'm just thinking about it," Lily said softly, not meeting her teacher's eyes. "That's perfectly fine. Take your time," Mrs. Patterson said, patting her shoulder gently before moving on to the next student. But it wasn't fine. Lily knew it wasn't fine. When the bell rang for recess, everyone rushed out of the classroom, still chattering about their family trees. Lily walked slowly, deliberately taking her time putting her pencil away, organizing her desk. By the time she made it outside, the other kids were already scattered across the playground. She found her usual spot on the far end of the playground, near the fence where a large oak tree provided shade. She sat down in the grass and pulled her knees up to her chest. Lily lived at Maplewood Children's Home. She'd been there for 3 years now, ever since the accident. She didn't like thinking about the accident. The social workers and therapists had told her it was okay to feel sad, that grief was normal, that talking about it would help. But Lily had found that not thinking about it worked better. Most days she could almost pretend things were normal. She went to school, did her homework, ate her meals. The other kids at Maplewood were nice enough. Some of them had become something like friends. The staff were kind. Ms. Rodriguez, one of the night supervisors, always made sure Lily had an extra blanket when it got cold. Mr. Chen, who managed the home, helped her with math homework sometimes, but they weren't family. Not in the way Mrs. Patterson meant. Not in the way all those kids in the classroom were talking about. Lily watched a group of girls playing jump rope. She could hear them singing a rhyme, laughing when someone messed up. In another area, boys were playing soccer, arguing good-naturedly about whether a goal counted or not. Everyone seemed to fit in so easily. Everyone seemed to have these normal lives with normal families. How was she supposed to make a family tree when she didn't have a family? The thought made her chest feel tight. She wrapped her arms around her knees and rested her chin on them, staring out at nothing in particular. She thought about just not doing the project. But she'd never failed to turn in an assignment before. Mrs. Patterson would definitely notice. She might ask questions. She might call Maplewood. Then everyone would know, and everyone would look at her differently. Or worse, everyone would feel sorry for her. Lily hated the idea of people feeling sorry for her. It made her feel small and broken, like something that needed fixing. The recess bell rang, pulling her from her thoughts. She stood up, brushed the grass off her pants, and walked back toward the building. As she entered the classroom, she could hear kids still talking about their projects. My uncle is a firefighter, so I'm going to draw flames around his name. I'm going to use glitter for my grandma because she always wears sparkly jewelry. Lily slid into her seat and pulled out her reading book. If she looked busy, maybe no one would try to talk to her about family trees. The rest of the day crawled by slowly. During math, Lily kept glancing at the blank tree outline sticking out of her folder. During science, while they learned about plant life cycles, she couldn't stop thinking about family trees and roots and branches. When the final bell rang, Lily gathered her things quickly. The bus ride back to Maplewood was quiet. She sat alone watching houses and shops pass by the window. She wondered what it was like to go home to a house instead of a children's home, to have a mom waiting with an after-school snack, to have a dad who asked about your day. When the bus pulled up to Maplewood, Lily climbed off with 3 other kids from different schools. The building was large and brick, with a wide front lawn and playground equipment on the side. It wasn't a bad place. The rooms were clean, the staff was caring, and there were always other kids around. But it wasn't home. Not really. Lily went straight to the room she shared with 2 other girls. They weren't there yet. They were in different grades and got home at different times. She dropped her backpack on her bed and pulled out the blank family tree paper. She stared at it for a long moment. Then she folded it carefully and tucked it into the very bottom of her backpack, under her books and folders where she wouldn't have to see it. Maybe if she ignored it long enough, the whole project would just disappear. Maybe Mrs. Patterson would forget about it. Maybe something would happen and they'd do a different project instead. But even as she thought these things, Lily knew they weren't true. The project wouldn't go away, and sooner or later she was going to have to figure out what to do about it. She just had no idea what that would be. The next morning, Lily woke to the sound of her roommate's alarm clock buzzing. The room was still dim, with only a thin strip of early morning light creeping through the curtains. She lay there for a moment, staring at the ceiling before remembering the family tree project. Her stomach immediately knotted. "Turn it off already," groaned Michelle, the other girl in their room, pulling her pillow over her head. Lily sat up and started getting ready for school. The morning routine at Maplewood was always the same. Shower, get dressed, make your bed, head downstairs for breakfast. Everything ran on a schedule, orderly and predictable. In the dining hall, about 30 kids from ages 5 to 17 sat at long tables eating cereal and toast. The younger ones were loud and giggly. The teenagers mostly kept to themselves, some still half asleep. Lily took her usual seat and poured herself a bowl of cornflakes. "Big test today?" asked Tommy, a 10-year-old who'd been at Maplewood even longer than Lily. He was looking at her concerned expression. "No," Just a project, Lily said quietly, stirring her cereal without really eating it. What kind of project? Lily hesitated. Family tree. Tommy's face changed. He knew. Of course he knew. Everyone at Maplewood understood what it meant to have a school project about families. That's rough, he said simply. And Lily appreciated that he didn't try to make it better or offer fake cheerfulness. At school that day, the family tree project was all anyone could talk about. During morning announcements, kids whispered about their plans. During silent reading time, Lily noticed several students sneaking glances at family photos they'd brought from home. Mrs. Patterson had set up a special display board at the front of the classroom. As you complete your trees, we'll hang them up here, she explained. By the end of next week, we'll have a whole forest of families. The class giggled at her joke. Lily tried to smile but couldn't quite manage it. During lunch, she sat at the end of a table with a group of girls from her class. They were nice enough to her, though she was never quite part of their inner circle. Today, they were deep in conversation about the project. My mom found this really old photo of my great-great-grandmother, one girl was saying. She looks so serious in it, like she's mad at the camera. People didn't smile in old photos, another girl explained, sounding very knowledgeable. It was because cameras took so long to take the picture they had to hold really still. I'm putting my cat on my tree, a third girl announced. Mr. Whiskers is totally part of our family. They all laughed. Lily picked at her sandwich, not really hungry. What about you, Lily? One of the girls asked suddenly. What are you doing for your tree? All eyes turned to her. Lily felt heat rush to her face. I'm not sure yet, she mumbled. Still planning it. You better hurry. Mrs. Patterson said presentations start Monday next week. I know, Lily said, taking a bite of her sandwich so she wouldn't have to talk anymore. Fortunately, the conversation shifted to other topics and Lily was able to fade back into the background. But the question stayed with her for the rest of the day. What was she going to do? That afternoon at Maplewood, Lily sat in the common room trying to focus on her math homework. The common room was a large space with mismatched furniture, donated board games, and a TV that always seemed to be playing cartoons. A few younger kids were building with blocks in the corner. 2 teenage girls were doing homework at another table. Ms. Rodriguez, the supervisor who worked most weekday evenings, sat nearby doing paperwork. She was a round, warm woman with kind eyes and graying hair she kept in a bun. She'd worked at Maplewood for over 20 years. Homework troubles? Ms. Rodriguez asked, noticing Lily's frown. Sort of, Lily said. Math or reading. It's not the homework exactly. Lily hesitated, then pulled out the crumpled family tree paper from her backpack. We have to make this for school. Ms. Rodriguez took the paper and looked at it. Her expression softened with understanding. Ah, I see. I don't know what to do, Lily admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Everyone else has normal families. They're bringing in photos and talking about their grandparents and stuff. I don't have any of that. Well, now, that's not entirely true, Ms. Rodriguez said gently. She pulled a chair closer and sat down beside Lily. You do have people who care about you. Different from what some other kids have, maybe. But that doesn't make it less real. It's not the same thing. No, Ms. Rodriguez agreed. It's not. But maybe that's okay. Maybe your tree can look different. Lily shook her head. Everyone will know. They'll all feel sorry for me, or they'll think I'm weird. Or, Ms. Rodriguez said carefully, they might understand that families come in lots of different shapes. You're not the only kid in the world living in a situation like yours, Lily. There might even be other kids in your class who don't have traditional families. Lily doubted that, but didn't say so. Instead, she asked, what should I put on it then? Ms. Rodriguez thought for a moment. Well, you could include the people here who care about you. Mr. Chen, myself, the other staff. You could include some of the kids you're close to. We're like a family here, aren't we? We eat together, help each other, celebrate birthdays. But you're not my real family, Lily said, and immediately regretted how harsh it sounded. I mean, you're all really nice. I understand, Ms. Rodriguez said, not seeming offended. You miss your parents. That's completely normal, and nothing and no one will ever replace them. Lily felt tears prick at her eyes but blinked them back hard. She didn't like crying, especially not where other kids could see. Think about it, Ms. Rodriguez said, standing up. You don't have to decide right now. But remember, The project is about family, and family is really about the people who love you and take care of you. That can look different for different people. Over the next few days, Lily watched the project come to life around her. Kids brought in poster boards and bags of art supplies. They compared notes about who had the most cousins or the oldest grandparent. Some drew elaborate trees with dozens of names. Others made simple designs with just their immediate family. One boy proudly displayed a tree that included his stepfamily, with 2 separate branches that connected in the middle where his name sat. "My parents are divorced," he explained matter-of-factly. "So I have 2 houses and 2 sets of step-siblings. It's actually pretty cool because I get 2 birthday parties." The other kids thought that sounded amazing. Nobody made fun of him or acted like his family was weird because it looked different. Maybe Ms. Rodriguez had a point, but still, Lily couldn't bring herself to start on her project. Every time she looked at the blank paper, her mind went empty. She'd pull out her markers, stare at them for a few minutes, then put everything away again. By Friday of that week, Mrs. Patterson started checking in on everyone's progress. She walked around the room during art time looking at the works in progress. "Wonderful colors, Kevin. I love how you included your pet hamster, Ashley. That's so creative, putting little facts about each person." When she got to Lily's desk, there was nothing to see. Lily had pulled out a blank poster board to make it look like she was working, but she hadn't drawn a single line on it. "Lily, how's it coming along?" Mrs. Patterson asked with a smile. "Fine," Lily lied. "I'm still planning it out in my head." "Well, remember, presentations start Monday. That's only 3 days away if you count the weekend." Mrs. Patterson's tone was gentle, not scolding, but Lily heard the warning underneath. "Time was running out, I know. I'll work on it this weekend." "Great. I'm looking forward to seeing what you come up with." After Mrs. Patterson moved on, Lily slumped in her chair. She had to do something. She couldn't show up Monday with nothing. But what? That night at Maplewood, Lily lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Michelle was already asleep, snoring softly. Through the wall, she could hear muffled sounds from the next room over where some of the younger kids were still settling down. She thought about her parents. Not the memories she usually pushed away, but really thought about them. Her mom's laugh. Her dad's terrible singing in the car. The way her mom always cut sandwiches into triangles because Lily thought they tasted better that way. The way her dad called her lily pad and pretended to be a frog. Those memories hurt, but they were also precious. They were all she had left. Could she put her parents on her family tree even though they were gone? Would that be too sad? Would it make the other kids uncomfortable? But they were her family. They would always be her family, even if they weren't here anymore. Lily sat up in bed and turned on the small reading light clipped to her headboard. She pulled out her backpack as quietly as she could and retrieved the poster board and markers. For a long moment, she just stared at the blank white surface. Then slowly, she picked up a brown marker and began to draw a tree trunk. It wasn't a big, elaborate tree like some of the other kids were making. It was simple, just a trunk and a few branches. At the top of one branch, she wrote Mom. On another branch, she wrote Dad. She paused, marker hovering over the paper. Then, in smaller letters under each name, she wrote their real names, Jennifer and Michael. It felt important to write their actual names, not just Mom and Dad. Like she was honoring the real people they'd been, not just their roles in her life. She stared at what she'd drawn. 2 names, 2 branches. It looked so empty compared to the elaborate trees other kids were creating with dozens of relatives. But it was true. It was her truth. Lily wasn't sure if it was enough. She wasn't sure if it was right. But it was a start. And after a week of staring at blank pages, having anything at all felt like progress. She turned off her light and settled back into bed. Through the darkness, she could still picture those 2 names on her poster, Mom and Dad, Jennifer and Michael. She missed them so much it felt like a physical ache in her chest. But tomorrow she would figure out what to do with the rest of the tree. Tomorrow she would try to make something that honored them while also acknowledging her life now. Tomorrow. There was always tomorrow. For tonight, having drawn those first 2 branches felt like enough. Monday morning arrived too quickly. Lily had barely slept the night before, tossing and turning as she worried about the presentation. Her poster board sat propped against the wall in her room, and every time she glanced at it, her stomach did nervous flips. Over the weekend, she'd added more to her tree. Below her parents' names, she'd written her own name. And then, after hours of thinking and erasing and thinking some more, She'd added a few other names: Ms. Rodriguez, Mr. Chen, Tommy. A couple of other kids from Maplewood she was close to. But it still looked different from everyone else's trees. It didn't have grandparents or aunts or uncles. It didn't have cousins or family pets. It was sparse and simple, and Lily worried it looked sad. "You ready?" Michelle asked as they got dressed for school. "I guess," Lily said, carefully sliding her poster into a large plastic bag to protect it on the bus. "I'm sure it's fine," Michelle offered, though she couldn't have seen what Lily had made. "Teachers always say they just want you to try your best, right?" Lily nodded but didn't feel any better. The bus ride to school felt longer than usual. Lily held the poster board on her lap, protecting it from getting bumped or bent. She stared out the window, watching the familiar streets pass by, trying not to think about standing in front of the class in a few hours. When she arrived at school, the classroom was already buzzing with excitement. Kids had brought their projects in all shapes and sizes. Some had simple poster boards like Lily. Others had made three-dimensional trees using cardboard and construction paper. One kid had even brought in an actual small tree branch and hung paper ornaments with family members' names on them. "All right, class, find your seats," Mrs. Patterson called out cheerfully. "I can see you're all excited to share your projects. We're going to spend most of today doing presentations." She explained the rules. Each student would come to the front, show their family tree, and talk about it for a few minutes. They should point out interesting family members, share a story or two, and answer any questions their classmates might have. "Who wants to go first?" Mrs. Patterson asked. Half a dozen hands shot up immediately. The confident kids, the ones who loved attention, were always eager to go first. Mrs. Patterson called on a boy named David, who bounded to the front with his poster. David's tree was enormous, covering the entire poster board with dozens of names. He enthusiastically pointed out his grandfather, who had fought in World War II, his aunt, who was a professional dancer, and his cousin, who had won a spelling bee. He talked rapidly, clearly proud of his big, interesting family. The class clapped when he finished, and David took a bow before returning to his seat, grinning. Next went a girl named Rachel, then another boy named Christopher. Each presentation was different but similar in one important way. They all showed normal families, parents and grandparents, siblings and cousins, regular families doing regular family things. Lily sat at her desk, her poster hidden under it, and felt her anxiety growing with each presentation. The projects were all so good, so full of life and stories and connections. How could her simple tree with just a handful of names compete with that? "This is wonderful, everyone," Mrs. Patterson said after the fifth presentation. "Let's take a quick 5-minute break to stretch our legs. Then we'll continue." Kids jumped up from their desks, some running to get water, others clustering around the presenter's desk to get a closer look at projects. Lily stayed in her seat, her hands folded tightly in her lap. "You okay?" It was Kevin, a boy who sat near her. He was nice enough, though they didn't talk much. "Yeah, just nervous," Lily admitted. "Me too. I hate presenting in front of everyone." Kevin made a face. "I always forget what I'm supposed to say." That made Lily feel slightly better. At least she wasn't the only one who felt anxious. "All right, back to your seats," Mrs. Patterson called. "Let's continue. Who wants to go next?" More hands went up. Mrs. Patterson worked her way through the list, calling on volunteers. Each presentation took about 5 minutes. Some kids were natural storytellers, making their classmates laugh with funny family anecdotes. Others were quieter and more nervous, rushing through their presentations quickly. But they all had the same thing: real families with connections going back generations. Lily glanced at the clock. They'd been presenting for over an hour. At this rate, they might not get to everyone today. Maybe if she was lucky, she could volunteer to go tomorrow instead. Buy herself a little more time to prepare mentally. "Lily, would you like to go next?" Her head snapped up. Mrs. Patterson was looking directly at her with an encouraging smile. Lily realized that she was one of the few students who hadn't raised her hand to volunteer, and Mrs. Patterson was making sure the quieter kids got their turns too. Lily's mouth went dry. "You can do it," Mrs. Patterson said gently. "Take your time, there was no way out." Lily slowly bent down and pulled her poster board from under her desk. She stood up on shaky legs and walked to the front of the classroom. Every eye in the room was on her. She turned her poster around so it faced the class but kept it held against her chest, not ready to show it yet. Her heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. "Go ahead whenever you're ready," Mrs. Patterson said softly from her desk. Lily opened her mouth, but no words came out. She closed it again, tried again. "My project is about family," she finally managed to say, her voice barely above a whisper. "Can you speak up a little, Lily?" Mrs. Patterson asked kindly. "I want to make sure everyone can hear your wonderful presentation." Lily swallowed hard and tried to speak louder. "My project is about family," she repeated. The classroom was unusually quiet. Even the kids who normally fidgeted and whispered during presentations were still inattentive. "But my family is different from most of yours," Lily continued. She could feel heat rising in her face, could feel the tears starting to build behind her eyes. She blinked hard, trying to push them back. She took a deep breath. She'd come this far. She couldn't stop now. "I live at Maplewood Children's Home," she said. The words felt heavy coming out of her mouth. She'd never told anyone at school before. She'd kept that part of her life separate, private. She could see the surprise on some of her classmates' faces. A few kids glanced at each other. Mrs. Patterson's expression shifted to one of concern mixed with compassion. "I've lived there for 3 years," Lily continued, her voice getting quieter again despite her efforts to speak up. "Since I was 6, that's when my parents died in a car accident." The room somehow got even quieter. No one moved. No one whispered. 22 pairs of eyes stared at her, and Lily felt exposed and vulnerable in a way she'd never felt before. So when Mrs. Patterson said we had to make family trees, I didn't know what to do. Lily's hands were shaking now, making the poster board tremble. "Because I don't have a family like everyone else. I don't have grandparents or cousins or aunts and uncles. I don't have siblings. I don't even have parents anymore." A tear rolled down her cheek. She wiped it away quickly with her shoulder, not wanting to let go of the poster board. "I thought about not doing the project," she admitted. "I thought about pretending I was sick today so I wouldn't have to present. But then I realized that even though my family looks different, I do have people who care about me." Lily slowly turned the poster board around so everyone could see what she'd made. Her tree was simple. At the top, on the highest branches, were 2 names, Jennifer and Michael. Her parents. Below their names, she'd drawn 2 small stars. "These are my parents," Lily said, pointing to the names. "My mom worked as a nurse. My dad was a teacher, actually. He taught 5th grade. My mom loved to garden, and my dad told really bad jokes that made everyone groan but laugh at the same time." She paused, remembering. A small smile crossed her face despite the tears. "They died when someone ran a red light and hit their car. I was at a friend's house when it happened. I didn't get to say goodbye." The silence in the room felt thick and heavy. Lily saw that several of her classmates had tears in their eyes too. Even Kevin, who was usually joking around, looked serious and sad. "Below my parents I put my own name," Lily continued, pointing to where she'd written, "Lily," in the center of the tree. "And then I put the names of people at Maplewood who take care of me now." She pointed to each name as she mentioned them. "Ms. Rodriguez tucks me in at night and helps me with homework. Mr. Chen makes sure everyone at the home is safe and happy. Tommy is another kid there, and he's like a big brother to me. He taught me how to ride a bike last summer." She'd also included the names of a few other staff members and kids from Maplewood, each one representing someone who had shown her kindness and care over the past 3 years. "I know this tree looks different from everyone else's," Lily said, her voice cracking slightly. "I know it's smaller and doesn't have as many people. But these are the people in my life now. They're not my family the way most people think of family. They're not related to me by blood. But they care about me, and they're there for me, and I guess that's what family is supposed to do." She lowered the poster board slightly, not sure what else to say. She'd said everything she'd planned, but it felt incomplete somehow. There was more she wanted to express but didn't have words for. "I miss my mom and dad every single day," she added quietly. "I wish they were still here. I wish I had a normal family like everyone else. But I don't, and I'm learning that's okay. Different doesn't mean wrong. It just means different." Lily stopped talking. The presentation was over. She'd done it. She'd stood in front of her entire class and told them the truth about her life, shown them her reality, made herself completely vulnerable, and now she stood there, waiting for their reaction, terrified of what they might say or do. The silence stretched on for what felt like forever but was probably only a few seconds. Then something unexpected happened. Mrs. Patterson stood up from her desk. There were tears streaming down her face, and she wasn't trying to hide them. She walked over to Lily and wrapped her arms around her in a tight hug. Mrs. Patterson held Lily for a long moment, and Lily found herself hugging back, something breaking loose inside her chest. She'd been so worried about appearing weak or different, but standing there in her teacher's embrace, she realized that maybe it was okay to be vulnerable sometimes. When Mrs. Patterson finally pulled back, she kept her hands on Lily's shoulders and looked directly into her eyes. "That was incredibly brave," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "Thank you for sharing that with us." Lily nodded, not trusting herself to speak without crying harder. Then, before Lily could even process what was happening, Rachel, one of the girls from her lunch table, stood up from her desk. She walked to the front of the room and hugged Lily too. Then David, who'd presented first with his big elaborate family tree, joined them. Then Kevin, then others. Within moments, Lily was surrounded by her classmates. Some were hugging her. Others just stood close, offering their presence and support. Even the boys who usually acted too cool for emotions had watery eyes. "I'm so sorry about your parents," Rachel whispered. "That must be so hard," another student added. "You're really brave,"
Kevin said, his voice cracking a little. Christopher,
who had presented his tree earlier, spoke up from the edge of the group. "My dad left when I was little. I don't really know him. My mom always says family is who shows up for you, not just who you're related to." A few other kids nodded at that. One girl mentioned her grandparents raising her because her mom was sick. Another talked about his foster sister who'd come to live with them last year. Lily realized with surprise that she wasn't the only one with a complicated family situation. Other kids had losses too, had families that looked different from the traditional picture. She'd been so caught up in her own pain and shame that she hadn't noticed. "All right, everyone, back to your seats," Mrs. Patterson finally said gently, wiping her own eyes. "Let's give Lily some space." The students returned to their desks, but the atmosphere in the room had completely changed. It felt warmer somehow, more connected. The easy chatter from earlier in the day was gone, replaced by something more thoughtful and genuine. "Does anyone have questions for Lily about her presentation?" Mrs. Patterson asked. A hand went up. It was a quiet girl named Beth who rarely spoke in class. "What's your favorite memory of your parents?" Beth asked softly. Lily thought for a moment. There were so many memories, and most of them hurt too much to think about. But Beth's question wasn't invasive or pitying. It was genuine, like she really wanted to know. "My dad used to make pancakes every Sunday morning," Lily said, a small smile forming despite her tears, but he couldn't flip them right. "They'd always fall apart or land on the floor, and my mom would laugh and say she was going to make him practice with regular food before letting him near the pancakes again." Several kids giggled at that, and Lily felt the tension in her chest ease a little. The memory hurt, but it also felt good to share it, to remember her dad's terrible pancake flipping and her mom's laughter. "They sound really nice," Beth said. "They were," Lily agreed. Another hand went up. "What's it like living at Maplewood?" a boy named Tyler asked. He seemed genuinely curious, not nosy or rude. "It's okay," Lily said honestly. "It's not like having your own family, but everyone there is nice. We have chores and rules, kind of like at home. We celebrate birthdays and holidays together. There are always other kids around, which is good because you're never really alone." "Do you get to decorate your room?" Rachel asked, sort of. "I share a room with two other girls, so we each have our own bed and a small dresser. I have some pictures and stuff on my wall." "Do you have enough food?" another student asked, sounding worried. Lily almost laughed at that. "Yeah, we have plenty of food. The cooks make dinner every night. It's actually pretty good most of the time." The questions continued, and Lily answered each one as honestly as she could. She'd been terrified of her classmates finding out about her living situation, afraid they'd treat her like she was broken or weird, but instead they were just curious and caring. They wanted to understand, not judge. "What made you decide to include the people from Maplewood on your tree?" Mrs. Patterson asked. Lily thought carefully about her answer. "At first, I didn't want to include anyone except my parents. I didn't think it counted as a real family tree if it wasn't blood relatives. But then Ms. Rodriguez, one of the staff members, told me that family is really about the people who take care of you and love you. And when I thought about it that way, I realized I do have people like that in my life now." She looked down at her poster board, at the name she'd carefully written there. Mr. Chen checks on me every night to make sure I'm okay. Ms. Rodriguez helps me with my homework and remembers that I don't like tomatoes, so she makes sure there's a sandwich without them on nights when we have BLTs. Tommy taught me how to ride a bike and how to shoot a basketball. They're not my mom and dad. They never will be. But they care about me, and that matters. It absolutely matters, Mrs. Patterson agreed firmly. Family isn't just about biology. It's about love and commitment and showing up for each other. What you've created here, Lily, is a beautiful representation of that. Mrs. Patterson walked over to the display board at the front of the room where other family trees were already hung up. She carefully pinned Lily's tree right in the center, in a place of honor. I think Lily's tree is a wonderful reminder that families come in all different shapes and sizes. Mrs. Patterson said to the class, some of us have big families with lots of relatives. Some have small families. Some live with biological parents, some with grandparents or foster families or in group homes. None of those situations is better or worse than the others. What makes a family real is the love and care the people share. The class nodded, seeming to absorb this lesson. Lily looked at her tree hanging on the board next to all the others. It did look different. It was smaller, simpler, with fewer branches. But Mrs. Patterson was right. It wasn't worse. It was just different. It was her truth. Thank you for sharing your story with us, Lily, Mrs. Patterson said. I know that took tremendous courage. You can take your seat now. Lily walked back to her desk on wobbly legs. As she sat down, Kevin leaned over from the next desk. That was really cool, he whispered. I mean, not cool that your parents died. That's terrible. But cool that you talked about it. My grandpa died last year and I still can't really talk about it without crying. I cried, Lily pointed out. Yeah, but you still talked about it. That's brave, Lily managed a small smile. Maybe it had been brave. She'd certainly felt terrified doing it. The presentations continued, but something had shifted in the room. The remaining students seemed more thoughtful about their presentations now, less focused on showing off and more interested in the real meaning behind the project. One girl talked about how her aunt had stepped in to help raise her when her mom got sick. A boy mentioned his stepdad and how it had been hard at first to accept him, but now he couldn't imagine life without him. Another student talked about how her family had adopted her baby brother from another country. Each story added another layer of understanding. Families were complicated. They came in all configurations, and love could be found in unexpected places. When the bell rang for lunch, Mrs. Patterson asked Lily to stay back for a moment. Lily's heart sank. Had she said something wrong? Was she in trouble? But when everyone else had filed out, Mrs. Patterson just smiled at her warmly. I want you to know how proud I am of you, she said. I've been teaching for 15 years, and that was one of the most moving presentations I've ever witnessed. You taught everyone in this class something important today. I was really scared, Lily admitted. I know, but you did it anyway. That's what courage is. It's not the absence of fear. It's doing the right thing even when you're afraid. Mrs. Patterson reached into her desk drawer and pulled out a tissue box, handing it to Lily. Lily realized she was still crying a little, tears that wouldn't quite stop. Can I ask you something? Mrs. Patterson said gently. Lily nodded. Why didn't you tell me about your situation when I first assigned the project? I would have worked with you to make it less difficult. Lily shrugged, wiping her eyes. I didn't want to be different. I didn't want special treatment. And I didn't want everyone to know and feel sorry for me. Do you feel like people feel sorry for you now? Mrs. Patterson asked. Lily thought about the hugs, the questions, the way her classmates had responded. Not really, she said slowly. I think they just understand me better now. Exactly, Mrs. Patterson said. You didn't diminish yourself by sharing your truth. You actually helped people connect with you more authentically. Lily hadn't thought about it that way, but Mrs. Patterson was right. For the first time since starting at this school, she felt like her classmates really saw her. Not just the quiet girl in the back who never caused trouble, but a real person with a real story. You should get to lunch, Mrs. Patterson said. But Lily, if you ever need to talk about anything, my door is always open. Okay, Lily agreed. And Mrs. Patterson, thank you. For what? For making me do the presentation even though I was scared. Mrs. Patterson smiled. You did that yourself, Lily. I just provided the opportunity. You found the courage. Lily walked to the cafeteria feeling lighter than she had in weeks. The anxiety that had been building since the project was assigned had finally released. She'd faced her biggest fear. She'd been vulnerable in front of everyone, and the world hadn't ended. In fact, things felt better. At lunch, Rachel waved her over to sit with her group. Usually, Lily sat at the end of their table, present but not quite part of things. Today, Rachel patted the seat right next to her. "Sit here," Rachel insisted. Lily sat down, and the conversation flowed naturally. They talked about the presentations, about the upcoming school carnival, about a TV show they all watched. Rachel's friends included Lily in the conversation, asked her opinions, laughed at her jokes. It felt good. It felt normal. It felt like belonging. For 3 years, Lily had been carrying the weight of her grief and her difference alone. She'd built walls around herself, convinced that if people knew the truth about her life, they'd treat her differently, pity her, reject her. But by letting those walls down, by showing her real self, she'd actually created connection instead of distance. The rest of the school day passed in a blur. The changes started small but grew quickly in ways Lily never expected. The next morning, when she arrived at school, things felt different. Kids who'd never really talked to her before smiled and said hello in the hallway. During morning work time, when Mrs. Patterson usually let students choose their own seats for group projects, Rachel immediately called out, "Lily, come sit with us." At recess, instead of spending time alone by the oak tree like she usually did, Lily found herself invited into games. Jump rope, foursquare, tag, simple playground activities that most kids took for granted, but that Lily had always watched from the sidelines. "You're fast," Tyler shouted as Lily outran him during a game of tag. She was fast. Living at Maplewood meant playing with kids of all different ages, and she'd learned to be quick to keep up with the older ones. But the changes weren't just at school. That evening at Maplewood, Mr. Chen called Lily into his office. She went nervously, worried that maybe someone from school had called with a complaint. But Mr. Chen was smiling. "I got an interesting phone call today," he said, gesturing for Lily to sit down. "From a woman named Mrs. Patterson. She's your teacher, correct?" Lily nodded, her heart beating faster. "She called to tell me about your presentation yesterday. She wanted me to know how brave you were and how proud she is of you." Mr. Chen's eyes were warm behind his glasses. "She also wanted to make sure we knew about it here in case you needed any extra support." "I'm okay," Lily said quietly. "I know you are." "You're a strong kid, Lily." But Mrs. Patterson said something else too. She said several parents from your class reached out to her asking about Maplewood. Some want to volunteer. Others are asking about becoming foster families. Lily's eyes widened. "Really? Really?" "Your presentation made people think." It opened eyes. "That's a pretty powerful thing you did." Lily hadn't thought about it that way. She'd just been trying to complete an assignment to be honest about her life. She hadn't realized it might inspire people to take action. Over the next few days, the ripples of her presentation continued to spread. On Thursday, Mrs. Patterson announced that the class had received permission to take a field trip to Maplewood. "We're going to spend an afternoon there next month," she explained. "We'll bring books to read to the younger children, play games, and help with some yard work." I thought it would be good for everyone to see the place Lily calls home. Lily felt nervous about her whole class visiting Maplewood, but also excited. Maybe if they saw it, they'd understand her life even better. That weekend, something even more unexpected happened. Lily was in the common room at Maplewood doing homework when Ms. Rodriguez found her. "Lily, there are some people here to see you," she said with a mysterious smile. Lily followed Ms. Rodriguez to the front visiting room, confused. She wasn't expecting anyone. When she walked in, she stopped short in surprise. Rachel was there with her parents. They were holding a cake. "Surprise," Rachel said, grinning. "My mom makes the best chocolate cake ever, and we thought you might want some. We wanted to meet you properly," Rachel's mom explained. She was a kind-looking woman with the same warm smile as Rachel. "Rachel hasn't stopped talking about you since Monday. She was so moved by your presentation." "We all were," Rachel's dad added. "We thought it would be nice to get to know you better." They spent the next hour in the visiting room eating cake and talking. Rachel's parents asked Lily about school, about her interests, about what she liked to do for fun. They didn't ask about her parents or the accident. They didn't treat her like she was fragile or damaged. They just talked to her like she was a regular kid worth getting to know. Before they left, Rachel's mom said, "We'd love to have you over for dinner sometime, if that's allowed. Rachel could use help with her math homework anyway, and she says you're really good at it." Lily looked at Ms. Rodriguez, who nodded encouragingly. "We can arrange that," Ms. Rodriguez said. After they left, Lily sat in the common room feeling dazed. She'd gone from being invisible to having classmates visit her, from eating lunch alone to being invited to someone's house for dinner. "See?" Ms. Rodriguez said, sitting down next to her. "I told you people would understand if you gave them the chance." Over the following weeks, more changes came. Other parents from Lily's class began calling Maplewood to volunteer. Some came to help with tutoring. Others organized donation drives for clothes and school supplies. One dad who owned a sporting goods store donated new equipment for the playground. The class field trip to Maplewood was a huge success. Lily's classmates came with books and games and spent the afternoon playing with the younger children. They helped plant flowers in the front garden and painted murals on the walls of the recreation room. "This is actually really nice," Kevin said, looking around. "I thought it would be like depressing or something. But it's not." "It's home," Lily said simply, and she realized she meant it. Maplewood would never replace her real home, the one she'd had with her parents, but it had become its own kind of home, a place where she was cared for and safe. The biggest change, though, came from Mrs. Patterson herself. In the weeks after the family tree project, she completely redesigned her approach to similar assignments. She started including disclaimers at the beginning of projects that involved families, making it clear that all family structures were valid. She created alternative options for students who might not have traditional families, and she shared Lily's story, with Lily's permission, at a teachers' conference. Other educators began reaching out, asking about how to make their classrooms more inclusive for children from diverse family situations. "You started something important," Mrs. Patterson told Lily one day after class. "You help teachers like me realize we need to think more carefully about our assignments and how they might affect different students." 3 months after the presentation, something even more unexpected happened. Rachel's parents approached Mr. Chen about becoming foster parents. They'd been thinking about it for a while, they explained. But Lily's story had finally pushed them to take action. The process took time. There were background checks and home visits and training sessions. Lily tried not to get her hopes up. She'd learned that good things didn't always work out, that plans could fall through, that getting too excited usually led to disappointment. But Rachel's family kept showing up. They invited Lily over for dinner every week. They came to her school events. They remembered her birthday. They asked about her homework and her friends and her day. 6 months after the family tree presentation, Mr. Chen called Lily into his office again. This time Rachel's parents were there too, all of them smiling. "Lily," Mr. Chen said gently, "Rachel's parents have completed their foster certification. They've asked if you'd be interested in coming to live with them." Lily looked at Rachel's parents in shock. She'd known they were going through the foster process, but she hadn't dared to think it might be for her specifically. "We can't replace your parents," Rachel's mom said quickly. "We would never try to do that. But we have room in our home and in our hearts for you if you'd like to join our family."